microphone?
Sure, why not?
Now, Reverend Jackson has given me strict instructions
Absolutely.
to say nothing at all about my campaign or anything partisan. I just want to make one correction. I'm running for U.S. Senate in this special election to fill out the seat of Johnny Isaacson. There is no primary, so it goes all the way till November. Now, I'm here to speak about two commitments that we all need to make. They're commitments to be counted and the commitment to make our voices count. This is a very special year, a year of decision, and you could say we are at the midnight hour. Because this year is one of those rare years where two things happen at the same time. On the one hand, we have a census going on, the 2020 U.S. Census. At the same time, we have a presidential election that will determine the leadership of our nation, control of Congress, and what direction we as a nation are going to be going in. I think we all know that this election is probably the most fateful and important in our lifetime. Now, a democracy has to have a census because we need to count how many people there are so that we fairly allot seats in our legislature. In the 2010 census, Georgia had its population counted, and as a result, we gained one more seat in Congress. The census does two things. It determines how many representatives a state receives. It also determines how much federal money its community receives. For every person who is counted, our community receives approximately $2,000. Now, I don't have to tell you that there are powers that be that don't want everyone to be counted. They don't want every community to get a fair share of federal funds. They don't want every community to get a fair share of political power. So we have to commit ourselves to be counted. And when I say we, I mean everyone in this room, young or old, citizen or non-citizen, because the census counts everyone who resides in this nation. Now, I've been a teacher for more than 40 years, 37 years teaching philosophy at the University of Georgia, and I want to give you a test. The first part of the test is to answer this question. Do you pledge to get counted on the 2020 U.S. Census? Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Well, let's say hallelujah. Now, the second crucial matter is not just being counted, but having our voice count, having our political will count.
Amen.
Now, I think we all know that in this country, your ancestors had no right to vote. First as slaves, and then after the Civil War, even after the passage of the 15th Amendment, that gave everyone the right to vote no matter what their race is. A reign of white terror established a Jim Crow tyranny which deprived African Americans of the ability to vote. And I think some of us in this room are old enough to have been around when, just down the road, outside Monroe, at Moore's Ford Bridge, two young African American couples were brutally murdered and lynched by a howling white mob. And you know why? Because they tried to vote in the Democratic primary. Now, it's been 50 years since the Voting Rights Act has been passed, so that everyone in this nation who is a citizen has a chance to go to the polls. But I think we all know that the powers that be are not making it easy to vote. We have two hurdles we have to face. One is we have to get registered before we can vote. Now, a democracy should make it as easy as possible to vote. You shouldn't have to do anything to be registered. It should be completely automatic. But America may be a great power, but it is not yet a righteous nation, and we do not make registration automatic. You have to do something to register. And then even if you're registered, it is not easy to vote. The powers that be do not want you to vote. And we see that because they are curtailing the hours of polling stations. They're limiting the time of early voting. They are reducing the number of polling stations, particularly in African American neighborhoods. And they are striking off the rolls hundreds of thousands of people who had neglected to vote last time around, and now will find that they've got to re-register all over again. So if we're going to exercise our right to vote and make this country righteous, we have to make a special effort. Now, I want to ask you another question. I'd like everyone here who is 18 years or older and a U.S. citizen to please stand. Please stand. Because all of you are entitled to vote. Now, I have two questions to ask you, and I'd like you to answer honestly. First, raise your hand if you are not registered to vote. Raise your hand if you are not registered to vote. Okay. Well, I'm glad you made an honest response. I would like to ask you to pledge to register to vote in time to vote in this election.
Amen.
Thank you. Now, for all of you who are registered, I want you to pledge that you're going to make plans to be able to get to the polls and stand in line as long as you have to make your vote count in the 2020 elections. Do you so pledge?
Yeah.
Okay. Hallelujah. It's heartening to hear that. And I want you to remember that in this election, no vote will be wasted. No one can afford to stand on the sidelines. Stacey Abrams showed us that the vote totals between one side and the other are so close that no matter what side you're on, the vote you cast could decide the issue. Now you can sit. So it's crucial that we get to the polls. And we have to remember that despite all the triumphs of the civil rights movement, social justice has not been achieved. As Martin Luther King said after winning the Nobel Prize, after the passage of the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Act, he said, if you do not have a job and a decent income, you have neither life, nor liberty, nor the ability to pursue happiness. We know there remains a huge gap in income and wealth and power between white and black and men and women. And we will not be a righteous nation until those differences in opportunity are removed. This election is a turning point where we can make America righteous and forge a new birth of freedom. Let's together go to the polls and make that happen. Thank you.